talked a little bit about processes, and you mentioned that practices is kind of the way we're going now with ITIL 4. Can you just elaborate a little bit more on what the practices will look like?
Sure. Interestingly enough, the word practices was part of the glossary in ITIL v3. And the glossary definition was a way of working or a way in which work must be done. So it was very much a rounded or a more holistic approach to how things need to be done. And if you read the guidance that had been published in ITIL v3, you would see that it not only described the steps and the roles and responsibilities, the things that we traditionally associate with the word process, but the guidance also talked about things like management authority or delegation of management authority. It would talk about the types of information that would be required to conduct work, the types of tools that might be required, and so on. So the guidance itself offered a very holistic vision of what was labeled a process. The incident management process really described an incident management capability or an incident management practice. And so with ITIL 4, we've brought that word practice to the forefront, and we've said there needs to be a well-rounded approach to how organizations manage their work. Capability, or in other words, a practice. So in ITIL, we talk about various practices and how those practices contribute to various value chain activities. For example, the relationship management practice, or the capability of managing various relationships, will contribute to the engage value chain activity, but by providing it with tools or information or a management hierarchy in order for a service provider to engage with the customer.
Okay, brilliant. That's really insightful. Thanks for that. So we've also been listening and hearing about the update in the guidance which reflects the 4 dimensions of service management. And I believe you've been integral of that, Akshay. So if you could just give us a bit of background about what that looks like as well, that would be really useful.
Sure. So the 4 dimensions model consists of, let's say it consists of 2 parts. The first would be the core, the actual 4 dimensions, and the other describes external constraints or influences on those 4 dimensions. The 4 dimensions, not an order of priority, but the 4 dimensions are organizations and people, information and technology, partners and suppliers, and value streams and processes. Now, long-time ITIL practitioners will recognize some of this. It certainly evolved from the 4 P's of service design or the service assets model that we talked about in ITIL v3. But what we've done with in ITIL 4 with these 4 dimensions is to talk about how they interplay and how they come together to be able to create the products and services that ultimately co-create value with the customer. What we've also said is that these 4 dimensions not only contribute to the product or the service, but they can also be used as a lens or a reference model to be able to create the service management practices. So when I'm creating, let's say, a mobile banking service, I need to take into account the various people at my disposal and management hierarchy, culture, skills, and so on. The various tools and technologies I need to be able to deliver a mobile banking service, the need for partners and suppliers, and the various value streams and processes I need to create or build or manage. At the same time, when I talk about the incident management capability that goes into supporting that mobile banking service, I need to take into account the management hierarchy, the people I have at hand, the different tools and information assets, the role of partners and suppliers, and the various scenarios and value streams I need to be able to account for. So it works at 2 levels. The outer shell, if you look at the diagram, the outer shell describes external constraints or influences which change the way in which I need to manage any of these dimensions and their interactions with each other. And we looked at the PESTLE model from the business analysis world to describe these influences. So PESTLE stands for political, economic, social, technological, legal, and environmental. So what we're saying is that the way you manage each of the 4 dimensions, the way they interact with each other, are all influenced or constrained by external factors which are outside of the scope of control of the service provider.
Cool, that's brilliant. Thanks very much. So we know the guiding principles are really important, especially we're in version 3, and I believe they're coming into ITIL 4 as well.
That's right. One of the things that people really loved about the ITIL practitioner guidance, which, as you know, was published in 2016, were the guiding principles. They are recommendations on how to work or how to approach work. When we conducted our research, we found that many practitioners appreciated that the guiding principles, and by adopting these guiding principles, allowed them to move the organization in the right direction, or to continue to sustain momentum of any transformation initiatives, and to help embed a service mindset or a service culture. And we asked ourselves, well, if this is the effect that these guiding principles are having on our practitioners, we should be teaching these guiding principles on day one.
So I understand there've been tweaks, haven't they, from where they were in version 3, 4. Is that right?
Absolutely. I mean, we talk about the importance of continual improvement in ITIL. We'd be a bit silly if we didn't adopt the same approach ourselves. And so what we've done is listen very hard to the feedback from trainers, consultants, practitioners, thought leaders. We've observed what's happening in other related industries within IT. And we went back to the drawing board and said, is there any way in which we can simplify or expand or bring in some new ideas into the guiding principles? And so what your learners will see on day one in their course, or maybe day 2 in their foundation course, is what these guiding principles are, how that influences the way they work, and how they allow this end-to-end visibility of a system of the service provider and how they can contribute to that system.
And the guiding principles will obviously be core to the high levels of certification later on down the line.
Absolutely, because everything that your learners will find out about and in foundation are the building blocks upon which we develop higher levels of guidance. So things like the guiding principles, practices, the service value chain, all these concepts will be reused in high levels of learning. So it's important to get a grounding about these things on day one.
Right from the start.
Right from the start.